You're lying on the cold ground inside a cave. Your body is burning with fever. Every breath feels like swallowing fire. There are no hospitals, no pills, no doctors, no clean water in a plastic bottle. Around you, the people who love you are doing something. They're pressing crushed leaves against your skin. They're burning certain roots so the smoke fills the air. They're chanting. They're watching. And somehow, against every odd you can imagine, you survive. You open your eyes 3 days later and the fever is gone. For most of human history, that was medicine. No laboratories, no microscopes, no understanding of what a germ even was. Just people, plants, fire, and thousands of years of hard-won knowledge passed from one generation to the next. And yet, when researchers began digging into the bones and teeth of ancient humans, they found something that stopped them completely. These people weren't dying as fast as we assumed. Many of them were living long enough to grow old. Some of them had survived injuries and diseases that should have killed them. The question that haunts every scientist who studies this is the same question you should be asking right now. How did they survive? That's the question we're about to answer. Subscribe to The Buried Layer so you never miss one. When archaeologists study ancient human remains, they aren't guessing. Bones and teeth hold information like a library. They show old injuries, healed infections, signs of disease, and even evidence of surgery. And what those bones have shown us over the last few decades has completely changed the way we think about early humans. In 1908, a nearly complete skeleton was found in La Chapelle-aux-Saints, France. Scientists named him the Old Man of La Chapelle. He was a Neanderthal, a close relative of modern humans who lived between 400,000 and 40,000 years ago. The old man had severe arthritis, meaning his joints were painful and stiff, and he had lost almost all of his teeth long before he died. He could not have hunted. He could not have chewed tough meat on his own. He was completely dependent on others to survive, and yet he lived. That means his group fed him, cared for him, and kept him alive on purpose. Eric Trinkhaus, a paleoanthropologist, meaning a scientist who studies ancient human relatives, published key research on the skeleton. His conclusion was clear. Neanderthals practiced compassionate care for their sick and elderly. That happened roughly 50,000 years ago. But here's where it gets unsettling. This was not a rare exception. Across dozens of ancient sites, scientists keep finding the same thing. People who should have died from their injuries instead survived and lived for years afterward. A 45,000-year-old Neanderthal from Shanidar Cave in Iraq, studied extensively by Ralph Selecki in the 1950s, and later revisited by researchers from Liverpool, John Moores University, as recently as 2020, showed healed wounds across his entire body. One arm had been amputated at the elbow. His skull had been damaged. His eye socket showed signs of an old injury that probably left him blind on one side. He survived all of it. Someone took care of him for a very long time. Not for a week, not for a month, for years. That means someone gathered food for him every single day, made sure he was warm at night, and chose over and over again to keep this broken man alive. That choice, made 45,000 years ago, tells us something about who these people really were. Ancient humans did not just survive on kindness alone. They also used the world around them as a pharmacy. A pharmacy is a place where medicine is kept and given out. Theirs was the forest, the riverbank, the hillside. This field of study is called ethnobotany, which means the science of how humans use plants. Researchers like Gary Paul Nabhan and Richard Evans Schultes spent their careers documenting traditional plant knowledge from cultures around the world. What they found was astonishing. Across different continents, with no contact with each other, ancient peoples had independently discovered that the same plants could heal the same problems. Willow bark, for example, was used by ancient Egyptians, Native American tribes, and ancient Greeks to reduce fever and pain. The Ebers Papyrus, an Egyptian medical document dating to around 1550 BCE, specifically mentions willow bark as a treatment. In the 1800s, scientists figured out why it worked. Willow bark contains salicin, a natural compound that reduces pain and inflammation. They used that discovery to eventually create aspirin, one of the most common medicines in the world today. Honey was used as a wound covering across ancient Egypt, Greece, and China. Modern science has confirmed that honey contains natural antibacterial properties. Antibacterial means it kills or slows the growth of bacteria, the tiny living things that cause many infections. People had no idea why honey worked. They just knew that wounds covered in honey healed faster and got infected less often. Garlic was used medicinally in ancient Babylon, Egypt, Greece, and India. Louis Pasteur, the French scientist who helped prove that germs cause disease, confirmed in 1858 that garlic kills bacteria in laboratory conditions. Ancient healers were right about garlic for thousands of years before anyone understood the science behind it. What is striking about all three of these examples is the same thing. These were not lucky accidents. Willow bark, honey, and garlic don't taste like medicine. Someone had to notice, over many generations, that people who used them got better more often than people who didn't. That kind of observation takes patience, memory, and a willingness to pay close attention to the world. Ancient healers had all three. But here's where it gets unsettling again. Ancient humans weren't just using plants. They were performing surgery. Trepanation is one of the oldest known surgical procedures. It involves drilling, or scraping, a hole into the human skull. This sounds horrifying, but the reason it was done is actually logical in some ways. Ancient healers may have used it to relieve pressure caused by head injuries, or to treat seizures, or for reasons that were spiritual in nature. The remarkable thing is not that they did it. The remarkable thing is that many patients survived it. Skulls with trepanation holes showing bone regrowth have been found across Europe, South America, and Asia. Bone regrowth around a hole means the person lived long enough after the procedure for their skeleton to start healing the wound. We're talking weeks or months of survival after someone drilled into their skull with stone tools. A 2018 study published in the journal World Neurosurgery by researchers including Philippe Charlier examined over 100 ancient trepanned skulls from sites around the world. The survival rates were surprisingly high, sometimes over 50%. Ancient Egyptians performed dental surgeries. Evidence from skeletons found at Mehrgarh in Pakistan, dating back to around 7,000 to 5,500 BCE, shows drilled teeth. A 2006 study in the journal Nature confirmed these were among the earliest known dental procedures performed on living humans. The drilling was precise and intentional. The Sushruta Samhita, an ancient Indian medical text believed to date around 600 BCE, describes over 300 surgical procedures and 120 surgical instruments. Sushruta, the ancient Indian physician credited with writing or compiling it, described techniques for cataract surgery, skin grafting, and reconstruction of the nose. Modern surgeons still consider some of his approaches to be the foundation of plastic surgery. There is one factor that science keeps returning to, and it is not a plant or a tool, it is other people. Humans are one of the most socially connected species on Earth. We evolved, meaning we changed over millions of years, in groups, and groups developed systems to protect their sick members. This is called social immunity, a term used by researchers like Rebecca Madrigal and others studying how social behavior functions as a form of group protection against disease. When researchers study modern hunter-gatherer communities, meaning groups today that still live in ways similar to ancient humans, they find consistent patterns. Sick members are fed. Wounds are cleaned. Medicinal plants are gathered and prepared by others. Knowledge of healing is held by specific individuals and taught carefully over many years. The healer or medicine person in a community was not a fraud. They were often the most experienced and observant person in the group, someone who had spent a lifetime studying what worked and what did not. This knowledge survived because it was true enough to matter. It helped enough people live long enough to pass the knowledge on. That is how it lasted tens of thousands of years without being written down. No books, no classrooms, no exams, just a person sitting beside a younger person, showing them which leaf to crush, which root to burn, which plant to avoid. Season by season, generation by generation, the knowledge moved forward through people, not through paper. Here is the conclusion most people avoid drawing, because it makes us uncomfortable in a very specific way. We have been taught to think of ancient humans as primitive. That word carries a heavy meaning. It suggests that people in the past were less intelligent, less capable, and less aware than we are. But everything the science shows us points in a different direction entirely. these people were not guessing randomly. They were doing something that looks, from a distance, surprisingly like what we call the scientific method. They were observing, they were testing, they were keeping track of what worked and what did not. They were teaching it, and they were doing it across thousands of generations, building a body of knowledge so deep that modern pharmaceutical companies actively send researchers into remote communities around the world to document traditional plant knowledge before it disappears. The World Health Organization estimates that about 80% of the world's population still relies on traditional plant-based medicine as their primary healthcare. That is not a historical footnote. That is the present moment. And here is the most unsettling implication of all. When a traditional community loses its elder healer, when the last person who holds that knowledge dies without passing it on, we lose something that took thousands of years to build. Something tested against real disease, real injury, real human bodies across countless lifetimes. Every time an elder healer dies alone, without a student beside them, a library burns down. Not a library made of paper, a library made of memory, built one hard winter at a time. Ancient humans survived because they remembered everything and threw nothing away. The real question for us, living now, is whether we are doing the same.